You're watching The Pulse on the Joy News channel. This afternoon on The Pulse, citizens urged to take up the fight against illegal mining as stakeholders admit government has failed to deal with the canker which continues to pollute our river bodies.
We, the people, should take responsibility. And taking responsibility means holding our leaders accountable. You know, we shouldn't just leave them. We have to be there front and center, advocating for changes, making sure that we are naming people and advocating.
And of course, we're bringing you some crucial and radical solutions from panelists on the Joy News National Dialogue on Illegal Mining. As panelists agree, mining and, of course, going ahead to name all the individuals and shaming the culprits will serve as a deterrent to illegal mining. We'll have more on that coming your way shortly. We're also paying attention to Medina MP Francis Xavier Soso, who's accusing President Akufo-Addo of seeking to frustrate the work of Parliament after he refused to sign into law 3 bills passed by Parliament which criminalizes accusations of witchcraft and also abolishes death penalty.
I believe that what the president is doing is a deliberate effort to frustrate the laws that have been passed by this Parliament, and it is very, very untenable.
It's more coming your way, and details as he says that there is an opportunistic interpretation of Article 108 of the Constitution. And still in Parliament as well, the MP for German North is demanding a parliamentary probe into allegations of some chieftaincy dispute in his constituency that led to the death of at least one person. We'll get you the latest, and there's more coming your way here on The Pulse. Plus, we get to hear from the Interior Minister, Ambrose Derry, who has been providing some updates on these chieftaincy-related matters. It's also exactly a year since the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, announced the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. We're assessing this afternoon the impact of that program 1 year on. I'm Blessed Sogan. Of course, The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. Thanks for choosing us. Joy News is independent, fearless, and credible. Welcome to The Pulse. Well, he is Member of Parliament for Medina, and Francis Xavier Soso says President Akufo-Addo is seeking to frustrate the work of Parliament with his refusal to sign into law 3 bills passed by the House. Now, 2 amendments to that Criminal and Other Offences Act to criminalise the accusations of witchcraft and also abolish the death penalty, as well as the Wildlife Resources Bill, all had to return to Parliament after the President raised constitutional issues regarding their passage. Now, Medina MP Francis Xavier Soso, who sponsored 2 of those bills, is indicating that President Akufo-Addo is simply failing to sign them into law and, giving untenable excuses. He's been addressing the press.
For me, it baffles me that the President is citing constitutional issues. So all this while, where has the President been? Or these constitutional issues have not been with us. I believe that what the President is doing is a deliberate effort to frustrate the laws that have been passed by this Parliament. And it is very, very untenable. It's unacceptable. I don't believe that it's a good practice that will aid our democracy. Maybe because I am an opposition member of Parliament introducing these bills. Remember that this Parliament will continue to exist. In the future, we are developing the jurisprudence of Parliament where private members can actively engage in bringing very important legislations that will change the course of this country. Tomorrow, if there are other members of Parliament that strongly believe that there are aspects of our laws that must be reformed, and they bring them, go through all the processes and get them passed, another president would then say that I'm not interested in assenting to this bill because perhaps it wasn't introduced by somebody from my side. And in my view, that would undermine our democracy. And that is why I seek to bring this strongly to your view. Remember that this year, during the 42nd Universal Peer Review in Geneva, the Attorney General, Honorable Godfrey, referred to these bills as Ghana's effort to advancing human rights in Ghana. And because he referred to these bills earlier this year, in October 10th this year, Ghana was given a seat, or was voted to be given a seat at the Human Rights Council at the UN. So you cannot, pretend to the international community that, oh, these laws are good laws, they've been passed by the Parliament of Ghana. On one breath, you now get a seat at the Human Rights Council, then you turn around and say that I'm not ready to assent to them because they have constitutional issues. Which constitutional issues?
And that's more from Francis Xavier Soso, who is also indicating that the interpretation of Article 108 of the Constitution has been mischievously done and will block all private member bills from Parliament.
Now, let me put on record that Article 108, that has often been cited as a limit on private members bringing bills, has nothing to do with the president's obligation to sign bills that have been passed by the Parliament of Ghana. It only regulates the process of Parliament, so that when the one presiding, in his opinion, believes that a bill may have a charge on the consolidated fund, the one presiding would then say that he will not admit those bills or not admit those motions. But when the motion has appropriately been admitted, has gone through all the processes, and have been passed into law, it will be really incongruous for a sitting president to say that because he believes that it may cause a charge. Remember that when an act is passed, it becomes an act of Parliament. And every act that is passed by this House is supposed to be implemented by the executive. And it will definitely have some financial implication anyway. So it is a wrong application and wrong interpretation of Article 108 that I believe that on this note the president got wrong.
We know that alleged witches at the Ghani witch camp are actually protesting the president's decision. Of course, we'll bring you what you're seeing on the screens right now. That demonstration has been taking place, and you see the inscription clearly. Mr. President, assenting to the anti-witchcraft bill should be a priority to, quote, protect women. And that's the message being sent across to the government on this very legislation. Is the reason for which we want to broaden the conversation here on The Pulse. And joining me now is features editor Jojo Kobna, who's been taking a look at this. And Jojo, you've done countless stories on, witchcraft camps. Talk about Gambaga, talk about the latest one we're looking at. And the stories are very grueling, the need for us to free these women in captivity. Tell us about, first of all, the extent of work you've done and what you found in these northern parts, and not just northern parts of the country, but across the country, looking at issues of witchcraft camps and, the inhumane detention of these women on some allegations.
So the very first time I went to the witches camp, alleged witches camp, was in 2008. At the very beginning of my career. And I have gone there many times. I can count more than 10 times. And every time I keep going, it's like a yearly thing to actually find out. First, I wanted to find out whether the numbers were growing, that they were declining. At the point, they were declining, and then they started growing. Right. And many times, all the stories that you keep hearing is, they have sent them to the witches camp. But the real stories, how the people are beaten, how the people are maltreated, how some even die, before they even get to the camps themselves. So you could really see that this is something that the state really needed to do something about. And the main reason why I kept talking about it was because we look at the laws that we have as a country. Women are not supposed to be treated that way. They are not supposed to be treated that way, but it happens. So it was to force government to do something about it. A typical story of someone said, okay, I was arguing with someone's mother, and then the son came and said, I'm a witch. And then they rushed them to the Gambaga witch camp. Yeah. Then they did what they call a tribal deal. They sacrificed some fowls, and the fowl said, oh no, the woman is not a witch. Then when she went home, they cut her hand. It's a story, and the guy fled. The person who perpetrated the act fled and has never been seen. Sometimes a very ridiculous statement like, oh, I had a dream about you, and well, when I slept, I dreamt that you were chasing me, and so you're a witch. And these are the stories that keep happening.
And of course, we're seeing some pictures of that's a hint,
yes,
right?
and so yes. So
that's the exercise you're talking about.
Yes, this particular story, I did it in 2 years ago, titled Finding the Witch Hunters, because I wanted to know that this story was actually looking at the perpetrators, people who actually did commit those heinous acts, and so it's a tracking. So I think we can watch it briefly, and then we can have this conversation.
He slaughters a fowl, throws it down. The fowl dances. The position at which the fowl lies tells you whether you are a witch or not.
Almost a deed journey, or you will sky a dear blue. What the daddy, or the abominable Moja Fidha, no more just
If a chief of any community calls you that this is what is going on, I have come in, taking over the case, so stop it. My brother, that ends it.
When misfortune strikes and there are no answers and explanations, mostly old women are blamed for it. Sometimes the accusation starts with very flimsy reasons.
Said we are successful in the trading, so we use juju.
That is the story of Mary Ibrahim, a resident of Sumpini in the Damango constituency in the Savannah region. She has now been compelled to relocate to another community. August 30, 2020 was a day she nearly died. She recounts a group of young men ganged up and attacked her because her trade business was booming. Mary said the young men said they had received a revelation that she was hatching plans to kill one of them to ensure her business booms. The immediate action was the infliction of machete wounds on her body. As if they were possessed, they slashed, hacked a part of her face, elbow, and chopped off her fingers.
There's no more trouble, sir. That made me say, pet, not sound, no more fussy. Oh, what the daddy?
The young men besieged my home and started accusing me. Before I could talk, they started slapping me and they slashed me with a machete. I started bleeding in the nose and mouth. I was confused, so I asked them why they were attacking me. They said I was a witch, and I was shocked. I asked, have I killed anyone? Have I made anyone sick? So why are you attacking me? Their fathers supported them. Their fathers told them to kill me. They hurt my child's eye. But they chased me and started slashing me with a machete. They cut off my 2 fingers. My neighbor came to my rescue. I had difficulty walking. Before I could get to her house, they cut part of my arm and the side of my face. They started lashing me. I have very bad scars.
Mary's story made headlines when a physician assistant, Thomas Asetanga, recorded the abuse and circulated it to the media. According to him, Mary could have easily died from the life-threatening wounds. So he circulated pictures of the attack to the media with the sole intention to exert some form of pressure on the police to arrest the perpetrators.
All she could say was, Meba, Pacho Buamwai, Meba, Pacho Buamwai. That's all she could say. And I think that also was one reason why I decided to send pictures out, because I felt this needed to be out there for people to see what had happened. That was just my motivation. I wanted to get justice.
The chief of Sumpini community said he called the police to act, and they arrested 5 people, but the main culprits bolted.
Immediately, even I was told that there was bloodshed in my village. Well, and before I came here, I passed to police. I reported the case to them. Yeah, that there was something smelly in my village, so I need their assistance. Before I came, they were not in town. Because I came with police, they were not in town, they all bolted.
Have they come back?
They started coming after the case.
Gafada, no, this kind of bomb, what the 2 gem, no, the shame. Hey.
For the first time, the perpetrators of such brutalities would face the law, or so it seemed. Unfortunately, the case did not progress after the second adjournment. Mary's brother says he felt pressured by many parties to settle the case out of court. So, they yielded.
I was also the only brother who could support. And so when the issue came up, I had to be called to try to allow sleeping dogs to lie. Whilst they were not dead, they could take care of our medical bills. In one of my engagements with the magistrate, he told me that very powerful hands are in the case already. So what he could do was that he will adjourn the case to another time. Then when we got to court, the judge was happy that they have made a step of paying our medical bills. So the judge could go on to say something. Looking at the powers that were coming and present, I realized that I could not fight those powers, but rather than to agree to what they proposed. So it isn't that I was forced, but circumstances made me to actually agree to those conditions.
The chief of Sumpini also said the magistrate instructed him to settle the case out of court.
The magistrate even said it, that he should come to me. I myself, I was not happy at all. I was not happy, but because they said I should unite the people, well, I was compelled to. I was compelled even to unite even the people.
You spoke to the MP?
Yeah, I spoke to him.
And what did he tell you?
So the MP said, okay, he will help, and then he did help. He gave 150 million. Samuel Abulai by Jirapo.
The Ghana police said they discontinued the case because the chiefs wanted to settle the case out of court.
On going to the court again for the adjournment, some opinion leaders, including the chief of the town, the assemblyman, some political heads, came in and said they are families. The suspects and the victim, they are families. It is unfortunate they've tagged the woman as a witch and has done that nasty thing to her. So they have taken up the case. They want to settle the bills at the hospital, compensate her, and then reunite them. So they are appealing that police should exercise patience for them to settle all those things and see if it will work. In these 3 or 5 northern regions, we have a peculiar problem, which is that if a chief of any community calls you that this is what is going on, this is what is happening, I have come in, taking over the case, so stop it. My brother, that ends it.
Settling such a criminal case of this nature strengthens and promotes impunity to perpetrate more heinous crimes. Human rights lawyers and activists are appalled that the police would discontinue such a critical case.
And of course, very touching revelations there. But the problem still persists, even as
yes,
we
the
speak.
problem still persists. And this particular law is supposed to solve the problem that we just saw, where Mary Ibrahim really wanted the case pursued, and then many powers got into the case and then reviewed the case. And so that we had no law at that particular time. So they were trying to find other ways of prosecuting. Now we have a clear law that can easily handle such a case. And then this happens. And you remember when the bill was passed, right. It was passed in July. Since that time, 3 people have been murdered for,
Witchcraft
allegations. One in the northeast region, one in the northern, 2 in the northern region. And it is one happened at the palace.
I see.
So you can imagine.
It tells you. Jojo Kobina is a features editor here, joining us with the latest on that. But Jojo is just telling us about how structural this has become, intentional this has become. In fact, it's gone way back, as you have pointed out in your report. And I guess the president's bill, assenting to this bill, will be very crucial.
Yes, it is very crucial. And this bill traveled so far. Because I had a very special interest in this particular thing, because it's a story that we have done, and as a journalist, when you do a story, you follow it up. So when this documentary aired, and then I remember the MP Francis Osu reached out and said he was going to file a private member's bill. We were all excited. We hailed him for a very good job, and then when it passed, we were all very happy that this was a very, very, very good, human rights promotion law, and we're excited about that. It's going to protect women, protect a very vulnerable women, and so that is the reason why proponents of the bill really feel let down.
Jojo, thank you. It's the reason for which we're having this conversation, because more and more civil society groups are mounting pressure for the president to act. I want to bring in now Professor John Azuma, who's the executive director at Sani Institute, joining the conversation. Is also a member of the coalition of NGOs against witchcraft accusations. Prof, welcome to the show. First of all, your thoughts about the president's posture towards this bill. Do you find some constitutional challenges as he points to?
Yeah, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners. It's very unfortunate that the president has taken this posture. As far as we are concerned, we worked with the members of parliament very, very closely, from drafting the bill together with them under their guidance and their leadership. Every single line was scrutinized, and all the legal and financial implications, the constitutional implications were addressed. These are members of parliament who are also lawyers in their own right. And so for the president to come out with that kind of general statement that there are constitutional issues without naming them, it just gives room for all kinds of speculations. And we are very, very unhappy. We are very disappointed that the president, who is a human rights lawyer, advocate for many years, would be dragging his feet on assenting to this bill to make it a law. This is a bill that the long as long as we keep dragging our feet, people are dying every day. Since this bill was passed, 5 people have been lynched. And these are the only those that we know of. We don't know how many more have been killed secretly. And so it's very sad that the president doesn't see the lives of these poor, innocent people as a priority and would want to find some legal kinds of excuses just to drag his feet or to delay or to refuse to sign this bill. That is so sad for this country.
I see. The point about what the president says, at least there's hope. He says he would return in the coming days to Parliament with a more appropriate process on how this bill should look like in its nature. Even before that time, the belief is that we still have some opening within the law. There's obviously assault on these women, an attack on them which violates their human rights. Why are we not taking respite in that legal opening?
Yeah, well, we that's fine with us. We know that in all of this, we have waited for 3 years. We've worked very hard on this bill for 3 years, since 2020. Some of us have been there. We made a petition to Parliament. We followed through. We worked with the parliamentary sponsors of the bill. We had all kinds of meetings. We took them to the north. We have worked for 3 years for this bill. We are not going to give up. We are going to continue. The president, we know from the Constitution that he has 7 days upon receipt of the bill to indicate whether he was going to sign the bill into law or he was refusing to do so. And within the 7 days, he should either sign or indicate his refusal. He has just done that within the 7 days that he got the bill. But after refusing, the president has got 14 days after refusing to give detailed reasons, specific reasons why he is not assenting to the bill. And that is what we are waiting for. We know there's a process here. The president has 14 days to give us the reason.
I get the constitutional process you're talking about, but my point is about, in the meantime, obviously you're concerned about the human rights of these women we're talking about, and that's why I'm asking if we don't have pre-existing legislation that deals with the same challenge, even if not to the maximum, at least something, some sort of a respite for many CSOs such as yours that fight for the rights of these women. Is that nothing you can rely on?
Unfortunately, we don't, because that is the more reason why this bill was so important.
Is that entirely the case? And that's why I was pointing, for instance, to the blatant attack on these women, assaults, whatever it is. We can take advantage of that if indeed the aim is to solely protect the rights of these women.
Yes, it's not just about protecting human rights. It's about protecting human lives. These lives are at stake here. These are not just rights. These are lives at stake. And what we're talking about is that, these laws that are on the books against battery, against libel, against defamation, against all of that, they don't apply when it comes to witchcraft accusation. When it has to do with soothsaying, witch doctrine, and all the labeling and the accusations. Without the labeling, without the accusations, there will be no lynching. There will be no beatings. And so we have to tackle the problem from the roots. That is what this bill is seeking to do.
Okay. The point about cultural complications, looking clearly at the report Jojo Covenant just put out, it tells you that indeed you have the involvement of chiefs, a very structured institution and revered in this country. You also have the aspect of, traditional worship. How do we juxtapose all of this, knowing that the Constitution equally guarantees at least the rights of these, associations?
Absolutely. The Constitution guarantees the freedom of religion and belief. The Constitution protects our traditions and our cultures. Those are absolute rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution. However, the same Constitution stipulates that all practices, cultural, traditional practices that are harmful to human beings and to society should be done away with, should be banned. That is what the Constitution says. And I don't see any cultural, traditional practice or belief that is more harmful than witchcraft, which leads to ostracization, perpetual stigma, generational disgrace of the family, and beatings and lynching. This is a cultural, traditional belief that is very harmful indeed.
And based on the point you're raising now, you're just opening, the debate up as to what might happen if the president within 14 days puts up a defense that doesn't, excuse my language, make sense to you. Will you go to court?
Oh, we are very happy. We are very much prepared as civil society organizations to take up the presidency. That is why we've got lawyers amongst us. We've got all kinds of people. We've got judges amongst us who are part of our team. We are waiting. We don't want to be shooting into the dark. We are waiting to see what reasons the president is going to advance for refusing to sign the bill, and we will take that matter up. That is what we are waiting for.
And finally, the point about you, the CSOs, and the way forward in terms of, trying to protect the rights of these individuals as you equally push for the legislation. Beyond the legislation, what are we to expect from the CSOs coalition, those of you fighting against, witchcraft accusations?
We have always had a three-pronged approach to this whole issue of witchcraft accusations in the country. And we've always said that it has to do with legislation, education, reintegration. We were working on the legislation to use the legislation as a tool for education, for sensitization, for raising of awareness on the harmful effects of witchcraft. The way witchcraft accusation can divide, destroy families, destroy lives and livelihoods. We want to be able to use the legislation to educate people also on the punitive measures, on the as a deterrent to in communities. Because when you're talking about just education alone without backing it up with some kind of deterrent, it doesn't work for everybody. And so we are working on that. We're going to continue with the education that we've been doing, and we have been doing the reintegration very quietly behind the scenes of women who it is safe for them to go back. We're going to continue doing that. But we were hoping that as soon as the president assents the bill, it will give us the legal leverage and impetus to really upscale these activities.
Okay.
And to take this to the next level.
Right.
That is what we are waiting for, and we are
indeed,
working on.
And I'm also waiting to see what the next steps will be. Grateful for your time. Indeed, we need to protect the rights of these women. I agree. Thank you for spending some time with us, Prof, here on The Pulse. Exactly a year today, the Finance Minister, Akufo-Addo, announced the Domestic Debt Exchange Program, popularly known as the DDP. The exchange was a major contribution or condition to unlock the IMF $3 billion bailout package, which requires the restructuring of Ghana's debt at both domestic and external levels. The announcement at the time raised serious concerns amongst the experts, bondholders, and also other stakeholders. Well, here are bites, excerpts of the key issues that came up over the period.
In delivering the much-anticipated 2023 budget, Finance Minister Akufo-Addo confirmed the obvious. He officially unmasked the nature of Ghana's debt portfolio. According to him, Ghana was at a high risk of debt distress, and the debt levels were unsustainable. Unlike our 16th enrollment in 2015, Ghana's unsustainable debt position was certainly a huge obstacle in obtaining an IMF deal. This means a lot of conditions must be met. According to the fund, in cases where the country's debt is assessed as unsustainable, the IMF is precluded from providing financing unless the member takes steps to restore debt sustainability, including seeking a debt restructuring from its creditors. IMF's message was very simple: restructure your debt or no bailout package. Ghana was out of the Eurobond market, and IMF looked like the only option. No more foreign grants, and at this point, debt restructuring looked inevitable.
As a middle-income country, you will be weaned of, we were being weaned of grants. You saw the slide? Yes. And we'll be weaned of concessional financing. Actually, I was the minister who, would I say, honored or what, to receive the letter from the World Bank and the African Development Bank telling us that we had become middle-income country. We couldn't borrow and repay over 40 years. We could only borrow and repay over 25 years.
After Considering all the conditions and the precarious nature of Ghana's debt portfolio, Ken Ofori-Atta in the 2023 budget hinted government was planning to carry out a debt treatment to create enough fiscal space for a $3 billion extended credit facility bailout package from the Bretton Woods institution. Investors began to doubt the earlier assurances given by the president, and subsequent happenings heightened their fears.
No individual or institutional investor, including pension funds, in government treasury bills or instruments, will lose their money as a result of our ongoing IMF negotiations. There will be no haircuts.
Prior to this assurance, government had borrowed heavily from the domestic market, and the domestic component of the country's debt stock had reached an unsustainable level.
All the deposits and things that are there, unless government significantly increases interest rate, which would increase the cost of borrowing. Remember, compensation plus interest, and throw the budget into complete, they are not going to get the money from the domestic market. The non-residents who were buying our bonds exited a long time ago. It's in the 2020 budget. We are in the 2020-21 budget. It's there. Bank of Ghana has said it. So the non-residents part of a word long ago, they were helping to deepen the domestic market. And we know it, right? It's on your websites and others. Government is not able to borrow from the domestic market. All the money it needs. Either it offers higher or it cuts.
President Akufo-Addo's big assurance of no haircut brought enormous relief to the investor community. Little did they know that they were in for a big shock of their lives. Barely 5 days after the finance minister confirmed Ghana's decision to carry out a debt operation, an international credit rating agency, Moody's, dropped Ghana's long-term sovereign bonds rating to deeper junk territories, bringing the number of downgrades and revisions to at least 7 in 2022 alone. For Professor Bopin, the investors were skeptical about the president's assurances.
Stanley, the market knew the president wasn't speaking the truth. Right after the president made a statement, the reactions were more or less to reject the statement. Okay, and therefore, my expectation is that any investor who probably took a decision on the back of that wasn't an investor, was probably a lotto doctor.
Then came the biggest announcement in 2022, less than 2 months after the president had urged investors to ignore any information of a possible haircut. On 4th December 2022, the government fulfilled its sovereign component of the bargain. It finally announced a debt operation called Domestic Debt Exchange, which outlined the nature of debt restructuring for domestic creditors. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta revealed the program was to invite holders of domestic debt to voluntarily exchange approximately 137 billion cedis of the domestic notes and bonds of the Republic, including ESLA and Dutch bonds, for a package of new bonds to be issued by the Republic. At this point, investors intensified their search for answers. Was a promise of there will be no haircut just a way of calming nerves, or another clever way to swindle investors?
Why can't you be very specific and tell us that if you don't participate, you lose your money? Then some of us will commit suicide rather than go through the pain.
Oh, please don't contemplate that.
I'm 66 in March, my brother or my son. I'll be 66, and there are so many people. Maybe I can survive, but I know friends who work in the public service who are doing nothing presently. All the investment are out there, and you're telling them without interfacing with them on one-to-one or giving them information that take it or leave it.
Organized labor was the first group to taste government's pill of disappointment. Government had decided to include pension funds in the debt treatment. The group had to fight government for weeks to exempt them from the program. Other government assurances to investors couldn't stand the test of time, as government made a sharp U-turn on December 23, 2022, putting the hopes of individual bondholders into disarray. It had revised its decision to exclude individual bondholders in the debt exchange program. An amended clause contained in the legal document governing the program revealed that the type of investors that can participate in the invitation to exchange had been expanded to now include individual investors. This came as a big shock to these persons holding government securities in the form of bonds. Like most investors, they had relied on both President Akufo-Addo and Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta's assurance of an exemption. President Akufo-Addo had information at his beck and call. He has speechwriters and researchers who have the responsibility of helping him deliver accurate information. The president read from a prepared speech, so why would he get it so wrong?
And that's the reason where we are today. Joining us now is Isaac Akufo-Addo, who's a data analyst here at Joy News. And in fact, when we go back to the issue of debt restructuring, it's just a matter of pain, desperation, weakness, you name it. That's been the sentiment I get each time I have a conversation with those who had a haircut. Well, you might not like me to say a haircut, but unfortunately, that's the reality.
Exactly. So haircut actually became, the infamous terminology probably around the whole DDEP. And just like you heard over there, the president assured investors that there will be no haircut. This was repeated by the finance ministers that there will be no haircut. But we've seen U-turns and flip-flops. But thankfully, in the 2024 budget that was read just last month, the finance minister was very categorical that the DDEP had been concluded. And we've been tracking this since it started, December 4th, 5th, 2022. And we've seen the number of exchanges that government they've done. We've seen the first exchange, the second one, and even the third one that government called the DDEP reopening. We've seen groups that were not supposed to be part, but were invited to come for haircuts, if I should put it that way. We've seen how Bank of Ghana lost 60 billion, Ghana cedis as a result of this domestic debt exchange program. And you will be speaking to Dr. Richmond Etuahene, who has been putting together fantastic research around this DDEP, and you will see how government found ways and means to actually revise the DDEP impact on the banking sector, sort of an indirect way of recapitalizing the banks, probably putting all the pressure and all the burden on the Bank of Ghana, which lost about $6 billion.
And it's a good time now to bring in Dr. Richmond Etuahene, who is a banking consultant, joining the conversation. Thank you, Doc, for your time. The conversation around haircut, no haircut, I guess that's settled now, isn't it? Looking a year back as that conversation was unfolding at the time, the controversy surrounding it, but we're getting and coming to terms with possibly what had happened just a year ago. What do you stand?
Thank you very much, Bliss. Thank you for the opportunity to explain what we have put together. When the president said there was no haircut, some of us who have done the various calculations said no, it wasn't right. So the exchange has been changed for so many times, about 3 to 4 times. But seriously, we've ended up 30% haircut on the whole sector. Depending
30%.
Averagely, banks are now 14% haircut. Bank of Ghana has about 53-point-something% haircut. Cocoa bills are 53%. Foreign bonds are about 52%. So when you aggregate them all, the pension fund has no haircut. They manage to, apart from the nominal losses, they manage to keep the same rate. So if you average the whole industry at the moment, the average is about 30%.
Okay, and Doc, sorry for cutting through, but to be fair to the president as well, maybe at the time he was making the comments, that was his intention. So it brings to the fore, could we have averted this?
Well, once you go into the debt treatment, whichever way you take it, whether it's debt repositioning or debt reprofiling or debt exchange, you only end up by losing some money. So as the other speakers, other people have said, the people who advise the president, I don't know where they came from on debt exchange. Most countries I can tell you Argentina, Greek, Uruguay, Ukraine, and now an African country like Ghana, they've all experienced in Jamaica and Grenada, they've all experienced this when they went to IMF for debt treatment, especially the model that we picked. The model we picked, the debt exchange. And whatever way you go about it, you're going to have a serious haircut.
The implications for the economy is what's fresh on our minds now, knowing that that's just the aspect of the domestic debt exchange. There's a second phase, I guess, coming up, which will have to do with our external debt restructuring, which is already posing a challenge. But let's assess the first one, which has been the domestic debt exchange. Practically speaking, the impacts on the average Ghanaian.
Well, thank you, Blaise. I mean, it's had an impact on every sector of the economy. Individuals have lost funds. Banks have lost averagely 14%. Cocoa sector, as I've told you, it is only the pensions who put up resistance and they managed to get it through. So apart from these, the pension fund, all the industry has suffered. And don't forget, with the macroeconomic instability, higher inflation, depreciation of the currency, higher interest rate, accumulated with the debt exchange impact, now it has affected ordinary Ghanaian on the street. Living standards has dropped. If you check the World Bank record, the recent data on poverty, 2.9 million of Ghanaians are now poorer as against 1.6 last year. So the debt exchange in real terms with higher inflation, depreciation, and what have you has affected the ordinary Ghanaian. If you go to the banking sector, after they did the first exchange, they realized that the impact was so much on the banks and they started calling for capitalization. So they decided that they will review it and revisit it. So when the minister came from Marrakesh, recent, he came with the new calculations. The new calculation is that he has reduced the maturity period from 13.8 years to 8.3 years, which brought the banks into where they are at the moment. But the Bank of Ghana suffered. Instead of the bank suffering, the shift has been, the losses have now been shifted. Yeah. NPV losses has been shifted to Bank of Ghana, because I think the Bank of Ghana has got a bigger muscle to take the shock. That's why they decided.
And a very much predictable situation, isn't it? But it's been a big stress for the banking sector. The governor himself admitting that there was a very tough moment for the sector, giving the trajectory from the banking sector cleanup to issues relating to the domestic debt exchange. How can the sector rebound? I guess that's the concern of the investors right now.
Well, the sector would take a reasonable time to come back, because you see, we have higher inflation, 35.3 or thereabout. I think it's the highest if you take Zimbabwe and one of the other countries. We are the third on the league. When you talk about the currency depreciation, with what is happening to the cocoa even syndication, there has been another point that Ghanaians have forgotten. Because we have a problem with the external debt restructuring, those who are supposed to participate in the cocoa syndication are now even charging higher premium. The reason why we haven't been able to syndicate the cocoa is all because the external creditors have not been properly structured. And this is the rollover. It is the rollover. The rollover crisis of the domestic has entered into the external forum.
I see.
That has affected cocoa syndication. We are looking only for $800 million, but we don't get international financiers to participate. And this is one area where people have forgotten that it is because of the debt restructuring, especially domestic. Because don't forget, there were domestic investors in our bonds. If you remember, they were about 14.6 billion, and they've all had to do juggling here and there. So they are now sitting cautiously.
And in fact, this is just bringing up the issue about the nexus, and that's why I want to bring in Isaac before I get back to you, Doc. The point about the next phase, which is the external debt restructuring. We are already facing challenges. The controversy surrounding whether or not we missed a timeline, which government says is debatable because some conditions ought to have been met before this timeline is finalized. Where are we now? How much commitment do we need, from the official creditors?
Well, first of all, it's factual that government has missed timelines, not just a timeline. The first timeline they set for themselves in the IMF program, they missed it. The second timeline they set for themselves to meet the executive board approval when they responded to our story, it was somewhere around 20-something November, they missed that timeline as well. So they've missed timelines. Not just one.
Putting that on
timelines,
record,
exactly. And it's clear that we are facing challenges, and that's clear for everybody.
And the IMF, in its official communication to us at the end of the first review, says how speedily we want the second tranche will be dependent on the official credit.
Exactly. We have what we call the required financial assurances. We, at this moment, are not required to probably sign the hard MOUs, but we need to get financial assurances that will help us unlock the tranches, of which we've not been able to get right now. Right now, what we are doing is to make sure that we use the bilateral way to get the required assurances we need. As for the commercial side, it's proven to be difficult because, blessed, you can't ask somebody who borrowed you money to all of a sudden accept 20 to 30% haircut.
Yeah,
to 40%. That's huge, in fact. And they are looking at it because it's not just Ghana that's doing external debt restructuring at the commercial level. Zimbabwe is there. Other countries are there. So they are looking at the creditors, what they will do, the haircut they will give to Ghana. If you give Ghana a haircut of 40%, another country will come to you, you give Ghana this is my proposal. So they are very circumspect in terms of the magnitude of haircut that they can give to Ghana.
And that includes China. China's
absolutely.
Concern they've been raising about the
exercise. Yeah, we've seen the gameplay they're having with Zambia, and we are not special anyway.
Anyway, so, let's see how that works. But let's try and draw the nexus, Dr. Tiahini, the point about the domestic and the external. What's going to be the connecting point? If that fails, are we going back to a third round, perhaps, of domestic debt exchange?
That would be a disaster.
It's not something I pray for, actually.
No, we shouldn't even think about.
I see.
No, we shouldn't even think about, because then it means we are completely bankrupt. We should never, ever think, whatever be the case, the external creditors, the negotiation must be completed, even to unlock the 600. The 600 is what we are all looking for. And it's also impinging on the cocoa syndication. Everybody is cautious. Nobody knows what is going to happen. So people are not ready even to participate in the cocoa syndication. And they are going to participate, they are going to charge us a higher interest, which is the first time. So I don't even wish and pray that we'll get to the point that you are stating at the moment. Bless.
Anyway, we just hope for the best. Any final words, to managers of the economy, what we should be watchful about, and of course, what your recommendations are from this research you've carried out?
Yeah, please. What I find it quite incredible is people tell us that they were stress testing here and there. I would have thought if they have done a comprehensive and a detailed stress test, we would have found out what is happening to us at the moment. And again, the communication aspect of the debt restructuring was not very good at all, because it kept on changing the goalposts here and then. When they started in 5th December, I made a statement that one of the issues in debt restructuring, there must be transparency and objectivity. Unfortunately, the goalposts were being changed here and there. Tomorrow you hear these guys have been exempted. Tomorrow you hear this guy has been included. And all these things that are not, as part of international debt restructuring, there must be transparency, effective communication. And also, our debt restructuring should be underpinned by strong microeconomic structures. What I mean by measures, there must be a serious expenditure cuts. That is the vein. Other than that, I bet you Jamaica did a similar thing. Within 3 years, they had to go back to the table. If the expenditure programs, if we don't stop some of this expenditure program, we'll go back in less than no time. Because we are getting to election year, I think another reason why the external are also keeping track is that as we get into the election years, people are becoming more worried because statistics have shown, records have shown that anytime we go into elections, we spend over, the last time was 15.2% of the GDP. The other one was 11.2. So people are very cautious that if they give in what they are saying, then we give room for expenditure blowouts. And I believe we must keep our expenditure, physical expenditure. We must curtail it,
right?
Reduce the size of government, reduce some of the flagship programs, review it without fear or favor. Other than that, the next government, whoever comes in, is not going to have it easy at all.
It's no doubt that these are very trying times for the country, but I'm grateful, Doc, for spending some time with us. Insightful conversation with you. And Isaac will be back with more data and analysis as we, of course, reflect a year on after the
we're actually doing part 3 of the A Nation That Begs, and that's heavily, it's on the external debt restructuring.
It's here on the Joy News channel, too, so you want to make a date with us as we bring you the latest. You're watching The Pulse on the Joy News channel. Still to come, citizens urged to take up the fight against illegal mining as stakeholders admit government has failed to deal with illegal mining. We'll tell you why.
We, the people, should take responsibility. And taking responsibility means holding our leaders accountable. We shouldn't just leave them. We have to be there front and center, advocating for changes, making sure that we are naming people and advocating.
And it's good to have you back with us. Sports batteries on hand, plywood on the floor, pupils on their knees planting. Well, at least that was the sight that greeted our news team at Noka MA Basic School in the Eastern Region, beginning season 3 of our School of Shame series. We tell you that story, touching one of how Eunice Asiedo Japan was transferred to teach in a non-existent school in Noka. This is also a piece about how vehicular knockdowns has for years forced parents in Noka to prevent their children from going to school. A story by Emmanuel Chiveno.
In the heart of the Eastern Region lies Noka, a colorful farming community that holds a tale of determination, resilience, and a hunger for education. But in this community, a silent struggle exists. Noka, with its warm-hearted people, lack a fundamental pillar for its children, a school. For years, children trekked several kilometers to distant communities to access education. But in their quest to quench their thirst for knowledge, they get knocked down by speeding vehicles. As a result, many parents stop their children from going to school.
Sometimes be visa. I had a school obi wo ho to me say chio no gina kwan nim na car nso gina wo say chen. Me ma me yi no. Ende bebre aha kwan de aye my school for na bebre na se akromo si obi wo kwan so car na bo no nkola mpanifo ye yan ha car bo wa unya wutin didim coded flat. You know, can't say, aye.
Young pen for crack up boy. If you are bonitin at a toe, a bank of Bama Yambidia, yes, then, young person of friend make your queen Macobium.
Meet Eunice Esiedua Ejapong, a trained teacher. In May 2023, she requested to be transferred to teach in the Eastern region. That was the only way to be close to home and take care of her aged parents. Eunice was excited when her request was approved, and she had been transferred to Unoka MA Basic School. Her excitement soon fades when she discovered Unoka Basic School does not exist.
I seek for assurance in Sawoma Doji Municipal, and I was given Noka Primary School. So it was Noka MA Primary School. That was what was on the letter. So I proceed and I had the release. So this academic year, that is 2023-2024 academic year, that was when I was released. So right after I had to bring my document to the municipal. So when I got there, I had to pass by the school to see where the school is located and how the place is. But when I came, when I met the town folks, I asked, I'm coming to Noka, and they told me the school is not yet completed. So when they told me that, I was surprised.
I had the information that a teacher was posted to the school. So I quickly informed the chief and the people of the town so that we can organize our children to start with the school. And that is what we have done. That is why you can see pupils over here. Now we are not schooling in the school building. It's somebody's chapel that the president has offered us that we should be here until the room is completed.
This is the school Eunice has been posted to teach. An uncompleted 6-unit classroom block, a Get Fund emergency project.
The road over here is a major road in Sampa Adesu to Cape Coast and Asamankese. So we thought it twice to establish the school so that those accidents will be avoided.
Sometimes when I sit and think about it, I wonder, because if there is no school, so why do you then post me? But sometimes I just conclude that it's the will of God. Maybe God knows why He sent me here. Because of the kids, maybe He knew I have to come around and start, so the rest will help me. So I'm just holding on to that. Sit, stand, hands up.
About 6 other teachers posted to Noka Basic School didn't return to the community after their first visit. But Eunice Esiedua Ejapong was determined to rise above the difficulties and make an impact in the lives of these young ones. Let the mission begin, knocking on one door to the other and inspiring dreams. She gathered the children. With the generosity of heart, Maranatha Power Ministry offered their structure.
It wasn't easy though, but I got help from the assemblyman and the pastor who gave us this temporary structure, that is Reverend Intiamwa. I had help from one man called Evans Mensah. He was the first person when I came to the place. He told me the structure will be ready very soon, so don't worry. And a lot of your colleagues have been around, they have come and checked the place, so don't worry. They will join you soon. And a lot of people are here, so you shouldn't worry at all. So those people, their words of encouragement, it brought positive vibes, and I decided that this thing I have to start.
Every morning, these learners embark on a symbolic journey to a bright future, carrying chairs to this makeshift classroom. In less than 2 months, enrollment increased, and so did the workload on Eunice.
On the 4th October this year, we started with admissions. And that day, I had 7 people admitted. And day in, day out, admissions increased. And currently, we have 107 kids. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially those younger ones who are now starting school. It's not easy. It's not easy for you to get them their concentration. They are hyperactive kids. So sometimes I have to be going around, catching them, letting them sit in between the upper, those in the upper classes. Sometimes if I see they are disturbing, I just have to let them sit beside the upper class peoples so that they can monitor them whilst I teach, so it won't distract the class. Looking at the nature of the place and the work itself, the workload, sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy.
In this shared space, children from ages 3 to 15 sit side by side, driven by a collective hunger for education.
Before we learn the new letter,
Eunice, with dedication etched on her face, navigates the challenges of a single-space classroom. The jamming of learners into one space and the workload makes it difficult for Eunice to follow the Ghana Education Service curricula.
For now, I have not started with the curriculum yet. I have not. Because if I say I am going by the curriculum, it's 6 week. And 6 week, we have different levels. We have different levels among us, so I can't. If we were more than that, I can go strictly according to the curriculum. But because I'm here alone, I can't do that. So I just pick the general thing they all have to know, then we discuss.
You're in class 1, class 2, and class 3, and class 4, and class 5. Classes, more classes. I anyway, one year, and you see on the back when you be a try the corner, many way, no try. No, this room, Tiago, no, this range, Yannick, KD Funa, Oceanic, as a F. Kepesa, bang, burning 10 for night class will be out on the class.
I can't be out here, so Bubiano. I'm a yapper, I saw down me in Sasse, one commander. Now, in
the community, I discussed with them and they said they have asked the churches in their community to give them their building. So if the teachers are around, we would have divided into classes and moved to the various church buildings.
These beginners are practicing how to write the alphabet. With their bare hands, they write the letters in the sand. This may appear unconventional, but their facilitator believes this helps to awaken the learners' imaginative minds.
We kids, we have some kind of imagination. So as you imagine, oh, this is how the person is writing, this is how the hand or the finger is turning. So as you picture that in your mind, you will write on the ground as you imagine it in your head. That is why sometimes when they open their books, what they imagined, that is what they write. So that is how when you want to start with writing, you go by air, writing on the individual's back, on the ground, then to the book. If you have tables, we'll be writing on the tables and on the slates, but our slates are few.
Call this a trip back in time or resourcefulness. For these young minds, however, these spoilt batteries are their best bet for a blackboard.
I started with the slates. Someone brought a slate, so I started with the slate. I write on the slate, then they copy. So it was later the community gave us a plywood to use as board. So we have to use the used batteries. So we mixed it with water and we darkened the plywood to be used as board.
It is time for lunch, and anywhere, including the floor, serves as a dining table. And when nature calls, these children have to run to their various homes.
Let's say toilet. And then Melequine. Melequine. Yeah.
What do you go there?
Those who cannot make the treacherous journey back home queue to use this unsafe latrine at the church.
Me, myself, I am scared of it. So sometimes, I quite remember one of the learners, she was crying, she wanted to poop. So I had to tell the senior sister and sending her there. When I realized they just got a rubber bag and they just let her ease herself and they tied it and went to put it in.
From my political experience, the school will be opened before next year academic year, because definitely is the government of in power who is doing it. We are going to vote by next year December, so they need to commission this school to show the community that they are working before next year academic year.
I say, in Kunyano, you have to children, near the abasi, your bread, your brands, and now food through every year. One and talk, and now food through the year. In suit or cry, bit me a shame. It's your swab some boy and dinosaur mind.
The best I burning them for night class will be our connect class.
They have potentials. Was being with them, I have seen some like to draw. Some also they are creative, and others also academically they are good. So I am hoping if the building is ready, we get enough teachers, we get learning materials, teaching materials. Definitely they will realize their potential and they will get far.
Me and Nessie. I'm a woman, and Papa, no more on my Ghana. I promise.
As they pledge their loyalty to their motherland, Ghana, these pupils are also saying a silent prayer for their school building to be completed. But until that prayer is answered, Eunice, Helenes, and in fact the entire Noka community will continue to dream of a brighter tomorrow.
And indeed, may their prayers be answered. But it's the start of the third series we're running in terms of the School of Shame. I want to bring in now Dr. Peter Antipati, Executive Director, iFirst Ghana, joining us via Zoom. Great to have you with us. This is just a one-off. Of course, we know of the numerous examples across the country where facilities are either abandoned or there's no fund simply to continue them. Why do we have this phenomenon actually continuing within the education space?
Good afternoon, and thank you for your question. Before I try to answer your question, let me make a very important observation that I've made. I've watched the documentary this morning, but sitting back and watching it again, I've realized that this town is not a village. It's not an isolated place where you will say that they don't have access to road. It's on a major road going to Draso Adeso, that particular road. Now, if such a town that's got such a good road can be left in such a situation where the kids cannot access basic education, then we are in big trouble as a country. Because normally you see some of these things with villages and then settlements that are just coming up. So you will not be so much surprised when you have some of these infrastructure challenges. But when you have a town like, I think the name is Onoka, on a major stretch in Sawam Ades Road, and they cannot boast of a single primary school. And you listen to the lady and she's telling you that it is when she started admission that she alone is handling over 100 students mixed up with children from early grade up to basic 5, 6, and some of them might even qualify to be in the junior high school. It is a big shame to our education sector. It is a big shame to the leaders that manages our education. It is a big shame to the people that are supposed to know that there is a town just by the roadside and things like this are happening. You see, let me come back to your question. This is happening because we do not, I've said this in the morning, we do not have a plan that seeks to address the various infrastructure challenges that we are experiencing in our education sector, especially at the basic school level. Every district is supposed to have a district education office. That district education office is in charge of the education in that particular district. They have what we call the CISOs. Previously, we used to call them the circuit supervisors. These CISOs visit all schools in the district. They write reports on these schools and they send it to the district office, forwarded to the regional office, and then to the national or the headquarters. So if these people at the district offices are doing their work well, they would have noticed that the MA school that they are posting the lady there does not have a complete infrastructure. And in fact, they do not have students. It means that they do not do their work, or they are not doing their work well, or they are doing it, but when they send information to the relevant authorities, to the region and to the national, these people seem not to even care about the plight of these the people in this particular village. And this is what is happening. There's no plan to provide these kinds of infrastructure for students that are for places that are not having these basic schools. And we keep on experiencing some of these things, especially when we have a town that is so close to a major road, and it's a very busy road. And I'm so surprised that this is happening in 2023 in Ghana.
I see. So where do we start off from in terms of finding the solution? It's almost as though it's become a cyclical problem. We keep going round and round. It's almost always infrastructure.
I think we should start from a broader policy perspective. Okay. I have said that we seem to practice this kind of decentralization where when it comes to the setting up of the school and then the supervision and other things, we say it is at the doorsteps of the district. But then the resources to move these schools to a level that we can be comfortable and say that these children are getting the kind of education that they need, it's centralized. It's with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance. So you cannot say that you are running a decentralized system and blame the local authorities that they are not taking control of the education in the various districts. We need to now redesign our policy. And for me, we need to start implementing a partial decentralization system where some amount of money is moved to the various district levels for them to use it to at least improve the infrastructure and also provide the basic resources that these schools need. Then those that need more attention, the national or the headquarters can come in. Again, I have also said that we need to develop a deprived school policy, that is targeted at ensuring that all our deprived schools, let's say within the next 5 or 6 years, we are going to ensure that these schools are provided with the resources that they need. If we don't do some of these things, if we don't do these targeted kind of interventions, we will continue to have these things. And thanks to joining, we will continue to see them happening always.
Doc, grateful. We'll reconnect again because this is just the beginning of a series of conversations to start on building and, of course, improving our schools of shame. But we take you somewhere to the German North area, because the MP for the area in the Bono region, Frederick Yawa Hinkwa, is requesting a parliamentary probe into a chieftaincy dispute in his constituency that led to the death of at least one person at Sampa. The police, according to reports, have arrested 7 persons who allegedly fired indiscriminate gunshots in the area on November 30 during the installation of the paramount chief of Sampa, which killed 1 and left 7 severely injured. In a statement on the floor, the MP also demanded the Minister for National Security and also Minister for Interior to brief the House on this development.
Persons sustaining various degrees of injuries on the 30th of November 2023 in Sampa. On the eve of the program, the dissatisfied party, according to the information at hand, decided to disrupt the program, which the police resisted after several hours of persuasion. This led to an exchange of guns between the dissatisfied party and the police, which resulted in the death of an innocent person and several others sustaining various degrees of wounds. Mr. Speaker, what saddens my heart is that when the innocent person was gunned down by the police, a good Samaritan lady went to his rescue and she was equally gunned in her arm. Subsequently, several other persons who wanted to come to his aid were warned by the police to stay off, or else they would equally be gunned down, including the deceased's own children. They left the deceased unattended for hours until he finally died in the scorching sun. Mr. Speaker, was this situation not avoidable? Mr. Speaker, I pray your outfit to invite the regional minister, the RegSec of Blue Region, and the National Security Minister, the Interior Minister, to appear before this August House and answer questions to what led to the demise of the innocent person and the injuries sustained by the other person, since they assured me that the situation was under control and they could contain the excesses. Also, they should assure this August House of measures they are putting in place to restore peace and calm without aggravating the situation, taking into account the polarized nature of the situation in Sampa. Mr. Speaker, I once again pray your outfit to constitute a committee to investigate the cause of this unfortunate and avoidable situation in Sampa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the MP for the German area there addressing the floor on happenings in the area. You're watching the polls on the Joy News channel. We're taking a breather. We'll be right back. And thanks for staying with us. Interior Minister Ambrose Dare has been responding to claims by the German MP asking for a parliamentary probe into the death of at least one person regarding the installation of a chief in the area. He says that the issue will be dealt with and calm has been restored to the area.
Engaged them and told them to take it easy. After 2 hours, the youth left the police and started firing. And Mr. Speaker, let me assist my colleague here. They started firing. The police commanded the police officials to fire only into the air. Only into the air. Yes, warning shots. So the impact of the warning shots was what dispersed the group ultimately, but it left a number of people injured. 10 police officers, including an officer always and continues and would also in this case subject all their actions to the Professional Standards Bureau to ascertain if all the police operatives who were in this operation did the right thing. The man who has been killed will have a bullet in him. There will be an autopsy. We would know which bullet is in him. And we will be able to continue with the investigation. But as we sit now, there is peace in Sampa, and we are going to maintain it.
And moving on, name, prosecute and shame all individuals involved in illegal mining and also pass stringent laws. Those are just some of the many radical solutions panelists on the Joy News National Dialogue on Illegal Mining are suggesting to deal with the national menace.
Illegal mining has become a pervasive issue in numerous communities. Vast forested lands have become obliterated, leaving water bodies clouded with toxic heavy metals. The widespread devastation has deeply affected many. Panelists at the Joy News National Dialogue on Illegal Mining passionately address the severity of this menace. The Chamber of Mines thinks the country is under siege.
Ladies and gentlemen, our environment is under siege. No two ways about it.
Even government institutions like the Forestry Commission consider the activities of illegal miners as an ecological disaster.
In brief, I would say what we saw was an ecological disaster. And this is not something we should countenance as a country.
Executive Director of Water Aid, Irabna Yanye Akufo, agrees.
What is happening in Galamsey affected areas is an extreme act of violence against our water resources. It is a hydrocide. This is genocide against generations, and silence only aids our oppressors.
Dr. Bob Mantel from the Center for Climate Change at the University of Ghana emphasized that the core issue lies in government's failure.
The problem we face is a governance failure and a collective action failure.
Small-scale mining has been around for several years. 34 years ago, there were less than 100,000 people involved. Now, the industry supports more than 3 million people. Martin Ayisi is the CEO of the Minerals Commission.
Safe, as the lawyers will say, I'm one of them, Greater Accra, Volta, and Oti, where I come from. And it's a matter of time. I'm seeing gold in Oti. I see the data every day. And then you move from 50 to 100,000 people to now an activity that supports 3 million, directly and indirectly.
The impact of Galamsey on the environment is far-reaching. Professor Frimpong Boateng highlights that the soil yield in mining areas has significantly diminished.
So we also have loss of biodiversity. There's physical danger, apart from the physical danger to humans and animals. Maybe you fall in pits and get drowned. We have polluted land farms, farmlands, loss of edibles such as mushrooms, snails, wild yams, plantain and bananas.
The water bodies have turned murky, laden with heavy metals from illegal mining operations that use them for gold extraction. Despite this, the Ghana Water Company asserts its commitment to maintaining stringent quality standards. Stanley Marte speaks for them.
There's no way we'll compromise on our integrity. There's no way we'll compromise on our quality standards. Now, currently, Ghana Water Company Limited is ISO compliant.
But CEO of the Minerals Commission asserted that he wouldn't permit his children to drink it.
And our UN Secretary General for Peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, has been touting Ghana's contribution to the UN peacekeeping, which, of course, has a ministerial summit underway here in Accra. We'll be bringing you further in our subsequent bulletins. This has been The Pulse. It's been a pleasant time with you here on the Joy News channel. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have lots of stories coming your way. Thank you for watching.